Welcome back into another edition of the post-game press conference on YouTube. I'm Ryan Pigeau alongside Jon Lodge, and this program is all about breaking down the recent advancements in the sports world. As always, we've got the NHL and the major leagues in the forefront of the conversation, and we're poised to deliver hot takes on all of it. So sit back, relax, and let's dial it in. Today, we're getting caught up to speed on some headlines. In the NHL, Jonathan Drouin has taken an indefinite leave of absence from the Habs, and there's a Jake Virtanen story in Vancouver that we want to touch on a little bit. The Maple Leafs are on a 5-game win streak with just 5 to play, including action tonight against the Canadiens that's currently underway. And as we record, they're just hitting the second intermission. I believe Austin Matthews has just tipped in the 2-1 goal. So it's 2-1 heading into the third, just in case you need that, which I know you don't. And in the MLB, the Blue Jays take a series sweep against the Atlanta Braves. We see George Springer for the first few times, and Vladdy has a monster 3-run home run night against the Washington Nationals, 2 of those coming off Max Scherzer. There's some injuries around the league that we want to touch on, including injuries with the Jays, some roster moves. But as always, there's lots to get into on all fronts. So if you're streaming live, feel free to direct your questions or comments about today's show to our Twitter account. That's at Postgame Media. But you can also follow us on Twitter. I'm A for Effort. That's EH, the number 4, and Effort. And that's Jon over there, Jon Lodge Music, JONLODGE Music. So if you want to get in touch with either one of us and tell us how bad we are at our job, then we're open to hearing it. Right, Jon?
Yeah, for sure. Let's tackle the elephant in the room, my background. I know it's a little bit different than what everyone's used to. We were having some modem issues. I was having some modem issues trying to record. So out of necessity, so that you all can be graced by Ryan and myself and our glorious hot takery, I moved my setup to a better Wi-Fi capable spot.
And we appreciate that. Like, just to give people a peek behind the third wall, I said to Jon, I'll do a solo pod, but I mean, it's not the most fun just talking to myself into a camera. I was on a little roll and I kept running into a wall thinking, damn, I wish I had Jon here to, bounce things off of. So we're pushing it back a little bit, but we'll keep it short, right? Because there's a Leaf game on. We're trying to keep an eye on that. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about, really not as much with the Leafs, more so with the Jays, because I'm just really impressed about the way that their season has gone so far. They're kind of punching above their expectations. We know that the guys are young and they're growing, especially with Pigeau and Bichette kind of learning their positions. But obviously, Vladdy's like coming into his own. So I think I want to start with the MLB and really get that going. Obviously, we can keep up to date on the third period of the Leafs game and throw that into our Leafs coverage later on. But the other real main topic, you touched on it the last episode, don't Montoyo and Walker continue to just piece together these absolute monster masterpieces of just bullpen work with Barucki and Phelps and Tim Meza, Chatwood, all these random guys that just keep coming out, getting, even facing the minimum at times, getting the job done. And even Barucki this weekend, the way that he came in to face both Freddie Freeman and Marcell Ozuna in one of the more crucial moments of the entire series, not just the game, comes in and gets the job done, faces the minimum the next inning, and he's out. I want to get your takes, man. What do you feel about the Jays a week later, now that we've already touched on most of these topics?
Well, I still feel the same way about Charlie Montoyo and Pete Walker, how they're managing the pitching staff. They're doing a wonderful job in a time period where the Blue Jays have had a lot of injuries. They've got their number 1 Ryu on the 10-day IL right now, so they're navigating some choppy waters when it comes to pitching, but they're doing a good job. And I want to highlight a point that I heard on talk radio this past weekend, and that is the entire Blue Jays bullpen staff, right, all of their salaries combined. There are 5 closing pitchers in the in Major League Baseball that make more than the entire bullpen combined.
I heard that. That's insanity.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show that Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins actually kind of know what they're doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. I know I can speak for myself. I was one of their major detractors, and I didn't like what they were doing, and I didn't trust them, and I thought that they were just going to be a small budget organization that was going to be content to be second or third place and not ever really pennant chase. But that's not the case. They've actually increased spending, and as we've seen with the George Springer contract being the biggest contract ever signed for the Blue Jays, that trend is going to increase. But they've also spent money wisely, and when you look at the bullpen and all the little pieces and the 500,000 here and the $1.5 million there, and there's no one who's making too much or a giant sum in that bullpen, but they're all working together as a team, and it's working out fantastic for the Blue Jays, especially when they've had to have these bullpen days where you get 2 innings out of one guy, 3 innings out of another one.
It's over and over every day. It seems like every game.
And Ryan Barucki, I mean, I remember when he was a starter for the Blue Jays. And he had injuries, and then he was transitioned to the bullpen, and now he's a power lefty to the pen, and that is such a great weapon to have for the Blue Jays. It's fantastic.
He's
But
only got
I
three
mean,
pitches. He doesn't really have a huge repertoire, and he's one of the rare lefties kind of in this bullpen, right? So they use him in those crucial moments. Obviously, like I said, against two big guys that don't hit. Ozuna hits lefties pretty well, so that was the important kind of note I wanted to make. It's just the fact that he's being used so often. I think they wanted to keep him down to like 100 innings on the season, right? So he comes out quite often, and I guess you keep an eye on how often they are using him. But I could see them going over it if they had to, just based on how useful he's been. That might be a bit of a hot take, but I also wanted to throw in, when you talk about all these closing pitchers, they spent money. They went out and spent money in this offseason, and unfortunately, out of their control, they're not going to get to reap any other rewards in acquiring Kirby Yates, who would have been their closer. That would have been their major arm, and they wouldn't have maybe been in that same discrepancy that we're comparing them to some of these closing pitchers in the league, right? That's something I wanted to throw in because, I mean, we could see a whole different bullpen, a whole different rotation, a whole different use of that bullpen. But right now, it's almost being forced out of necessity, right?
Yeah. Right now it is definitely forced into necessity. But when you look into, like you said, look to the future, look to when the Blue Jays hopefully get healthy, it's just going to be that much more of an asset. They know that they can go to it when it's needed, and it's needed now. But I mean, when you think about having that ability for the playoffs, possibly, that's bullpens win championships, and the Chicago Cubs will tell you that much, right? They had
Chapman, my favorite player of all time out there, helping them win a World Series.
Yeah, they had a ridiculous bullpen. So I'm sorry, I'm just looking up some stuff that's going on at the New York Rangers.
Panarin getting tossed around here by Tom Wilson.
Yeah, Ovechkin was hurt and left the game, so it may have something.
Look at Tom Wilson. Look at Wilson standing there like this. Look at he's doing the whole, like, he thinks he's, oh my god. Thank God we got a game on.
Yeah, I can't see it yet. I don't have the highlight, but I'll make sure to check it out. But
I don't know if you can see me. Wilson's standing in the box like this. Like he's actually pretending to be tough, yeah.
Yeah.
With a pose.
Wilson's a pretty tough guy, but I mean, I would hazard a guess that it goes back to Ovechkin getting hurt.
Yeah, right? I read that there earlier as we were trying to get a recording going. It looks like Ovechkin left. He's only been returned from an injury for this game, and he's already left with something going on. I didn't get a chance to read into it, so what do you know that's going on?
I don't know anything yet, but
okay.
I'll make sure to check into it as we go here. I want to get back to the Blue Jays.
Absolutely.
I want to get back to baseball before we jump into hockey, and then we're down a black hole of hockey.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we're talking about for an hour. The Blue Jays bullpen has been fantastic. I mean, imagine how much better it would have been with Kirby Yates as the closer, right? Like it's
that's
just
what I'm
insane.
saying.
Like that's such bad luck to have that guy go down. But I mean, high risk, high reward, right? They knew going into it that it was a possibility, and it indeed did happen. You brought up George Springer though, when we were entering the Blue Jays here, and we got to see him for the first time. And it looked great. He had the 2 home run game, and he's contributed. But I'm worried. I'm worried about him, Ryan.
Me too. Because he 3 games in,
down to first,
he's feeling tired.
Down to first, and he grabbed his quad. Yeah. On his first at bat, trying to run and give it all down to first. If you can't give it all running to first base, you can't play in the field, and you really shouldn't be batting, because you need to be able to give it your all the way around the bases, right? Like
you're no Manny Machado out here, man. Like Manny just.
I mean, George Springer isn't Manny anyway, but
I just mean the attitude at the plate, right? Like I don't going clutch isn't my game.
I don't need to.
I don't grind
need to run it down to first. Yeah. No. That's not George, and that's the problem, right? Well, that's not a problem, but that's what we're talking. That's why we're talking about it, right? He's going to bust it down to first every time, and if he's not quite ready, like I was one of the people who were like, come on, let's get him in. It can't be that bad.
Oh yeah.
But then I see that, and I was like, whoa, pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes. This is a 162 game season.
I agree with you there.
It's a 162 game season, and if he goes out there and he does that 5 more times, and all of a sudden he pulls that quad, and now he's out for the season because he tore something, right? No, thank you. And it's as evident that tonight, George Springer not in tonight.
Exactly.
So I was talking with my family. I said to him, I would not be surprised if we saw George Springer go back on the 10-day IL, just simply based on the fact that that quad is just not quite there yet, and it needs a little bit more rehab, a little bit more rest. George got those games in. He showed Blue Jays fans what he can do.
Great
right?
point. Yeah.
And maybe hopefully he got what he needed from it, because he said he was sick and tired of sitting on the bench and watching them play, right? Maybe he got what he needed from it, but now we need him to rest. I'm sorry, we need him to rest. I can't be worried about him busting his ass down to first base and then pulling up lame, and we lose him for the whole season and playoffs. I'm not down for that. I would
Yeah.
rather just put him on the IL.
Yeah, so the quote from Montoyo after he leaves the game is they're just trying to be careful with him, that his quote legs felt tired after playing 3 games. But and unfortunately, I was busy. I didn't get to see the game, but I'm tracking it. It was I think 5-1 or 5-2. Whenever he hits the first home run, I think awesome. There's his first home run as a J, and then later on, I see that he hits a more important one to tie the game. Correct? That's when Grichuk comes in, wins it with a base hit in the 10th. But again, after the game, he says legs felt tired, and I thought, okay, when I saw the highlight of his second home run, he really did look like he was like not limping, but almost like trotting kind of weird around the bases. I thought, is that the way he runs? I've never seen him run before. So then you kind of adding that on there, where you thought the first home run that I didn't see, I didn't even see the highlight of. He must have done something going to first there, unless it was
No,
another separate hit. It was a separate hit.
The first game he came back. So his
Oh,
very
okay.
first at bat in his first game he came back. He
Okay.
was running. He grounded out to first, right? And he grounded to shortstop, and it was a close play.
So
at
very first play.
And,
Okay.
and he got about 5 feet from first base, and he clutched at his quad, right?
Josh Donaldson-esque, where you're just like, oh God, you're always hurt.
Well, I mean, I just that's the Blue Jays pessimism or pessimist in us. It's this guy knew he was hurt and he was just milking the Blue Jays, and now he's never going to be able to play. And
yeah,
blah,
Kirby
blah,
Yates.
Blah. This is George Springer's cheating karma. That's what it is, right? This is
right.
And the Blue Jays get to suffer not the Astros. The Astros don't get to suffer. It's the Blue Jays that get to suffer because of George Springer's cheating karma, right? That's what's going to happen, right?
Don't forget those garbage cans suffered a bit too. You should have seen how they looked at the end.
Someone threw an inflatable garbage can on the field at an Astros game. Like,
kudos to you. Props. Way to be creative. But anyway, Jays sweep the Braves in a 3-game series. I wanted to say Robbie Ray's terrific through the first 6 innings in game 1. Only has a slight bit of trouble in the 7th, but that's there's a 10-run deficit at that point, so it's okay. It's not a huge deal. But another kind of bright spot in a rotation, like you said, their ace is kind of out with that butt strain, as we talked about. And again,
firing. The glutes aren't firing.
Okay, Tiger Woods. But going all the way back to what you said before, like the need for this bullpen, even their ace, like their number one guy, is not a guy who's known to go very far in games, right? So it's almost like no matter what, out of necessity, Montoyo and Walker are put in this position. Like they don't have Yates, they don't have really many aces that are like an ace that's going to take you 7 innings like some guys, right? So no matter what, right, with Ryu, whether he's on the shelf or pitching every 5 days, they're always going to have a real pulse on their bullpen. Who's ready to go today? And you knew Danny Jansen was going to come in on Sunday, right? Because not only had Alejandro Al's brothers Kirk been placed on the injured list, but they played like a night game, and then Sunday's game, I believe, was like an afternoon. So you kind of guarantee Danny Jansen's coming in there. And you and I both felt, I think, the same way. You heard all the stats come up on the broadcast. Like this guy's in danger of being like the worst producing J, at least like the most futile streak of a J of all time, right? And he finally comes in clutch. I think he gave fans a small breath of confidence, if you want to call it that, right? Because I wouldn't say it's a breath of fresh air. You know, Danny Jansen is what he is. He's a 4th-year player, so you kind of have an idea of what he's going to be. But you learn earlier in the day that Kirk's been placed on the injured list with a hip flexor strain, and the guy's been hitless for 25 days. So you're starting to just kind of get a little nervous. But he drives in Randall Grichuk for the game-tying run. Not only is it a big hit, but he drives that tying run in, then follows that up with another base hit, gets a run because Bo Bichette hits the double. But the guy was 0 for 35, John, an 0 for 35 slump coming into the game. And you had some fans on Twitter calling for the rookie catcher Riley Adams, the 3rd-round pick in 2017, to be called up. Or no, not to be called up, because he'd recently been called up, to get a shot, because they didn't think it could get any worse than what you had right now with Danny Jansen. And then did you hear the story about his glasses? Like some people are saying all you needed was the regulation glasses, and all of a sudden you can hit the ball.
The nerd power glasses. Yeah, the Sogard look, right? Yeah. He actually he accredited Sogi for as his word Sogi for the look. He said he was going with the Sogi look, and because the high performance goggles that he used, he had a prescription change and they weren't in yet, so he had to use his civvies, I guess. And they look good, man. Like I mean, like come on, right? Why wouldn't you wear them? If those work, wear those, man. Who cares about the stupid goggles? You kind of look foolish with the goggles on anyway. It reminds me of like that weird baseball or basketball player look with the goggles on, right? It doesn't look good.
It's like purposely looking nerdy because you're so cool. Like I like that sometimes. Like I want to purposely look like the ugliest, goofiest looking guy out there.
But I mean, like, good for him getting off the schneid, right? Like,
yeah. Man.
I play the show, you play the show. I know how I feel in RTT Road to the Show RTTS. When I'm on an 0 for 20 streak, I want to just snap my controller in half like I'm the god of thunder. And I can only imagine how that would feel for Danny Jansen, it being his profession, him having millions of people watching him, judging him, and then he's judging himself. He was hitting 046. 046. That is some horrible numbers. And then for him to come out and he did not only have the 2 hits, he had a walk to go along with it. He had a perfect night.
Yeah.
And so just good on Danny Jansen. He is a defensive catcher. He is what he is. In regards to Riley Adams, he was called up because he was on the 40 man. If we need another catcher, if Kirk is hurt for the long term for 30 days or so, old bat waxer's coming up over Riley Adams. I'm sorry, but yeah, we're gonna see Reese McGuire before we see Riley Adams.
Wow, did you actually just do that? That flew over my head, pun intended, for a second, and now I realize what you're doing. My goodness.
Yeah. I went there, but I mean, how can you not go there when you're talking about Reese's Pieces?
He's not a careful guy. That's all I'm gonna say. And if anybody's not clear about Riley Adams, all I read was that he's a bigger catcher than probably you've ever seen. Like
he
a
looks
6
like
foot
Sal
4.
Perez.
Yeah, he's a massive guy out there. A lot of the scouting reports say he's really fighting to stay catcher. Like eventually they see him moving to another position, like a Kyle Schwarber, outfield, left field, you know what I mean? So don't have any high hopes for a guy like him. Don't just be clamoring for Riley Adams to get a shot just because you're not happy with Danny Jansen's performance. Hey, that's a 4th-year guy over a rookie. He's gonna get he's gonna get the call, or like you said, Reese's Pieces is gonna get in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at the size alone. I have no idea. I see Sal Perez crouch down and I see him stand up and he's like a foot taller than most of the other batters. I'm like, man, your knees.
I know.
Your knees. How do you do that?
Well, like, ask Al Kirk the same thing.
Right? Like, no, but Al Kirk's a short guy though, right? He's a short, like small center of gravity. It's not like
grinder. That's what we call a grit grinder in the GTA.
I don't see Adams being a catcher for very much longer. And Sal Perez is a great catcher. Don't get me wrong. And he's stuck there and he'll always be there. But like, he's a beast out there. He's very, very rare. You see big, like very tall catchers, right? You normally see smaller guys back there. And yeah, I'm totally good with Danny Jansen being the starting catcher of this team. I know how much everyone loves Alejandro Kirk and the fact that he can hit the homer and it's flashy and it goes deep, but Danny knows how to call a game.
Yeah,
Danny's
you need
the
a
guy
catcher
I trust
with a pulse.
In the 9th inning with a 1-run lead and a guy on second and your closer on the mound. Danny's the guy I want behind the plate calling the game. I don't want Kirk there. I'm sorry that he's great offensively, but he hasn't proven to me that he can call a game the way Danny can. And I know that the staff is really comfortable with him. Not that they're not getting comfortable with Kirk, but he's been there for less than a year, including last year, right? So it's a comfortability level. And yeah, I mean, look what Danny's done with Steven Matz, right? Like, I mean, yeah, Pete Walker, Steven Matz, you give both the guys credit, but I mean, the catcher's that third piece, right? He's the guy that's right there through the thick and thin of it with the pitcher, right? So it's Danny Jansen is very undervalued by Blue Jays fans, and it's not about his bat. That's why he's hitting 9th.
Here's what I'll agree. Like it's your most important position. You could argue catcher is easily most important next to pitcher. Number one, the relationship aspect, but they're like the drummer in a band, right? They keep everything on tempo. They have the pulse of the game more than any other player on the field. I would argue that it's your second, shortstop, and your catcher. Otherwise, like those are your most important guys. That's why the weaker defensive guys usually maybe a third baseman, right? We keep having our struggles with Pigeau. Maybe you need a third baseman to be more athletic and have a better reaction or better defensively. You would sacrifice more of a bat for their defensive capabilities in those positions. But yeah, first and the outfield, usually I guess center field, you'd kind of substitute that one out because you need a more athletic guy there. But I agree with Danny Jansen. In the end, he's undervalued because he is that guy with the pulse on the game. He is the guy with the relationships built in. And if his bat wasn't so below average, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So potentially he's got that opportunity to, with tons of games left in the season, to bring it closer to average. But in the end, like I agree with you. I think he's a very versatile guy in terms of what you need from a catcher. The bat is a lot to be desired. I wanted to say too, and speaking of bats, Marcus Semien, since moving from the first hole to the sixth hole, an incredible turnaround, right? He struggled as the leadoff guy for a bit of a stretch. I know they had him in there for a while, and
At 176.
it was gross. It was gross, but now on Sunday he drove in the 4 runs with a double and a home run. He's hitting 344, 436, and a total of 615 in 7 games in the sixth hole. Like that is an impressive, as I would say, impressive turnaround. So keep him in there, especially now that you should. I was gonna say have Springer back, but now we've maybe unearthed the bigger issue. Hopefully, leading off and playing center field more than DHing. But then again, I mean, we'll figure that out down the road as we feel through Springer's injury. But again, Marcus Semien, props to him for, I guess, grabbing the bull by the horns in the sixth hole. For some reason, with no runners on, he can't do a single thing. But as soon as he's hitting behind Bo and Vladdy, and I forget who it is. Is it Gurriel or it might be Hernandez hitting between
Vladdy,
those guys?
Hernandez.
Yeah, Hernandez. Yeah. So again, I thought it was a big thing to point out. And then before we get into earlier in the week with Vladdy, because it's a longer conversation, I just wanted to ask you, when Pearson is activated off the IL last Thursday, he's going to start in AAA, right? Because they begin play for the first time since COVID came into our lives. He's not going to stay there, but is he coming up to pitch in the rotation or pitch out of the bullpen? What's your take?
Well, he needs to hit the strike zone before he can get back to the major leagues, and so he that's why he's gone down to AAA to find the strike zone again. He's going to be the game one starter. I don't know if that was tonight or tomorrow, but you might see Alek Manoah in the major leagues before you see Nate Pearson.
Okay.
And I mean, that might be a bit hot takey, but
he's really the only other guy in AAA we're looking at right now. Everyone else is in the lower leagues.
And I don't know if Alek Manoah is a starter either. He might be. I don't know enough about him. But when you think about it, whether or not these guys are starters, if you can pencil in Alek Manoah and Nate Pearson as your 8th and 9th inning guy, who's going to hit that?
Fair.
I know it's cutting down. I know it's cutting down their potential, and so I'm not putting them there yet.
Yeah.
Right. But even if we're in a situation in a year where like, okay, these guys are set up closer guys, right? They're still like Craig Kimbrell was a 10, 13 million, $20 million player, right? Closers like Aroldis Chapman is a World Series champion and an all-star closer. Right. Monster. So like you need guys like that as well. So I don't know whether or not he'll be in the bullpen or whether or not he'll be in the starting rotation, but Nate Pearson will be up eventually, but he needs to find the strike zone first. He had some struggles there at the alternate site. So
okay, it sounds like you could see him maybe stay there a little bit longer than I thought. I didn't think he'd be there very long. I thought maybe as soon as he looks like he's back to conditioning. I didn't think it had anything to do with his stuff, but then again, I'm not as deeply researched on it as you. So it sounds like to you he might stay there a little bit longer. But I wanted to just throw that out there and see what you.
Yeah, I'd give him a handful of starts down there, right? You know, like let him get his confidence back up and get it done, right? Blue Jays tonight, late game, starts in about an hour. Hopefully we'll be done here by then. I think we will.
Oh yeah, we're gonna fly through this.
We got a couple NHL, but we'll be quick with the NHL.
Vladdy's monster night though. You talked about a handful of home runs. Let's, before we get out of here, just at least give him a shout out because he ultimately broke that game wide open for the Jays. Trey Turner was the guy who I thought was going to have the historic night because he was back-to-back home runs in his first 2 at bats, right? And then all of a sudden you see Vladdy hit that grand slam and you're going, he's here, boys. Like if there's not a single player in the league to watch an at bat, every at bat, it's Vladdy. You know, if it's not Vladdy, it's nobody because he's so exciting. I mean, Jay's biased there, I get that, but like I said, he broke the game right open, and that's 2 world-class pitchers that he's carved up, in my opinion, this season. Very first game of the season, we were all dialed in to see what he's going to do against Garrett Cole. I think he took 2 walks, got a hit. It looked like a different Vladdy, right? And you hear the broadcast say, man, like when you're established in the league, you stop swinging at garbage. We've always known his biggest asset might even be his plate discipline. So the fact that he can hit dingers and read a pitch on its way in, like you start seeing a guy have a start against Garrett Cole like that, and then turn around and I think that's his first It's got to be
3
his
home run
his
game
first
last
start
year.
against Max Scherzer, right? Unless
Yeah,
they
yeah,
played
yeah, yeah,
last
yeah.
season. And he
Actually, no. I think he had two at bats against Scherzer last year. Yeah.
okay, fair. Again, I'm not as researched on it, but just staying in the moment here, I'm just thinking, man, oh man, when you're starting to come into your own in a season like this, and you're matched up against those guys, and you're doing what you're doing, hitting two of those home runs off of Scherzer, including the grand slam, like, let's go, buddy, you're here. I think going back to the show, man, by the end of the season, he's going to be bumped up to a diamond, right? He started out as a 75, just a travesty. I don't know why they do that to him. They put him at third base, they give him a 75 silver, and they say have at it with a Vladdy, even though he's like one of the major like moving needle points in the whole league, right? So they boost him up to an 80 this week. In my opinion, going back to the show, as he'll be a diamond by the end of the season. You mentioned the game tonight. There's 3 straight that start at 9:40 tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and then the game for 4-game series is going to finish up with a 3:30 start on Thursday afternoon. So we'll be dialed into all that action this week. I'm sure we will be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Blue Jays handle it, the West Coast and the time change and everything that comes with it. No George Springer. It'll be interesting to see who's batting leadoff and where Craig, Kevin Biggio is hitting. You can tell I've been playing the show a bunch. I have his dad's card, so yeah. On
11.
to
Yeah. Right
on
into the Leafs.
onto the Leafs and their dominance of the North Division. I mean, what is there to say? We praised them up and down. Jack Campbell had an amazing stop on a 2-on-1.
Yep.
On a 2-on-1 penalty kill rush, and but bearing the lead, the story is the story. It's 34 again with this 39th, and no longer is it a question, will he get 40? My question to you, Ryan, is he going to get 45?
45. They've got 4 games left to play. You need 6 goals in 4 games. That sounds like Tony to me. I mean, can I disagree? Should I disagree because we're, on a radio show here? Yeah, no, he won't do it. He'll get 42. I'll stick with that. But man, like if there's ever something never to bet on, that's it. Tony scoring 6 in 4 games. Come on.
He's going to go. No, if he doesn't get 45, it's going to be 43. It'll just be his number inverted.
There you go.
Right.
Speaking of numbers, like Jack Campbell's sample size, we keep talking about, from the start of the season, he's got to do more. He's got to do more. The sample size is tiny. He's barely played. I mean, now we're talking about a guy who is 15-2-1 on the season.
He's in Bennington territory.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's in Bennington territory right now. And Frederik Andersen, he's got to be sweating a little bit. Jack Campbell is the game 1 starter for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. He just is. He's
got to be.
He's earned it. But that doesn't mean he's the game 2 starter or the game 3 starter, right? He could get the first 2 games, and then they could give 1 to Fred, right? It's good to be able to rest these guys.
It'd be nice to be 2-0. Imagine you're 2-0 and you can play Fred in game 3. Like that. That's where I'm happy.
Carlo brought up an amazing point.
Or 3-0.
The North Division is the only division that has to cross 4 time zones.
Ooh.
4 time zones.
Wow.
So you could find yourself, like, imagine dealing with that as a goaltender, right? So having the ability to piggyback Freddie and Jack off of each other in that way, it takes away the fatigue of it all, right? If you're going one night off or one day off, and your day off you're traveling, say it's not in the bubble, right? So say Toronto, they could have facing Winnipeg in the first round, because Montreal could move up and Winnipeg could move down.
It's incredible. It's been a week, right? It's been a week since we talked about that.
Yeah, Toronto could end up having to play 2 in Toronto, and then on the day off they got to fly to Winnipeg, right? And then you fly to Winnipeg, and that's an hour time difference, I believe, maybe an hour and a half. And then that can screw up the goaltender, but then you end up going to Edmonton, and that's 2 hours time difference, right?
Yeah,
and
I see that.
At least you don't have to go to Vancouver, which is 3 hours time difference. But it just, being able to piggyback the goaltenders is going to be the best plan of success for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But Jack Campbell is the game 1 starter. There you go. You have it. I've said it. It doesn't mean I've given up on Frederik Andersen.
No.
But
it's never been about that, right?
I do believe in Jack Campbell as a possible number 1 if he can continue. Dude, I still think he's a 1A, 1B type guy who needs a guy to be there and piggyback and play 45% of the games to be at his optimal.
I still argue that if this team wasn't as good as they are, he wouldn't be anywhere near what that record is. Okay, so let's keep an eye on that. Freddie Andersen might have this kind of record on a bad team. I think we've said this over and over. He might be 15-2-1 on a team with poor defense because he's Freddie friggin' Anderson when healthy, right? But I don't think Jack Campbell on a bad team could have a 500 record. Okay, so
So
it's never been
how
about their
many?
skill. It's always just been about the fit on the team. And Jack Campbell on this team wins games.
So
Freddie,
if
Freddie almost gets. I've always said this. It's like Freddie gets enough of a break throughout a game that he almost loses his focus and then lets in like stinkers. Whereas Campbell plays like kind of like a 1A at all times or a 1B at all times, and he seems to keep getting it done. So again, I'm with you. It's never actually been about Freddie at all. It's always been about, wow, look at how Campbell actually fits into this team. His positivity, his relationship with all these guys, plus the fact that although it doesn't look as good as Freddie, he's getting it done, right? Again, I don't think he'd be able to pull this off on a bad team. Although Freddie, I think, could be 15-2-1 on any team he wants. He's that good.
so how many games does Jack Campbell have to win before we start hearing Vesna? I mean, there's only 4 games left after tonight,
I don't
and
think
so
he's in the running.
if he's
I don't think
16
so.
2-1, I mean, I know there's 4 goaltenders, and a lot of them have played a majority of the team's game. But if we're going on statistics,
Yeah.
and Jack Campbell was only able to play so many games, then he needs to be in the conversation at least. And I don't
I could see him
realistically,
getting a couple votes, right? He could get a
yeah,
couple votes,
yeah.
but I think Hellebuck is the guy that played himself out of it, and Vasilevsky's been the front runner and the run out, like the runaway out all season. So if Vasilevsky doesn't
Oh,
get
I'm
it,
going to
it
go with the
makes no
hot take
sense.
and say Marc-Andre Fleury wins the Vezina this year.
Cool.
Um,
Okay.
uh, but the trophy that I think Jack Campbell could win is the Masterson, most improved player,
That's huge. Usually that
right?
goes to a guy who's had like personal struggles, but I could see him being like the most, yeah, for sure.
Jack
I could see
Campbell
it.
has had personal struggles, a lot of
Hell yeah.
personal struggles.
Hell yeah.
If you listen to his story and what he's gone through,
That
and so
article
to
on The
finally be
Athletic
able
for
to,
sure.
to finally be able to find it and be on, like you said, it's a great team. But you still need competent goaltending. You can be the best team in the league if you've got a black hole in net, you're never going to win, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's just it's gonna be you're gonna be emptying pucks into your net, right? So you need a guy who can stop it. You need a brick wall in there, and it's been proven time and time again. I mean, look at what Tim Thomas was able to do. Look at what Anton
Yep.
Khudobin was able to do last
That's
year.
who I see
You know,
Campbell as. That's who I see him as. I see
yeah,
him
he's
as the less sexy starter. I see
yeah,
him as just like the guy. Like he's just like he's never going to be elite. He could never have this record on a team that couldn't do it in front of him. But there are some guys in the league that could. Like Vasilevsky could be 15-2-1 on any team. A Freddie from back in the day when we used to chant his name in the crowd could do 15-2-1 on any team. Like they were so good in their peak. And I don't think
and
it's
I see
gone
so
for those guys,
much.
but Campbell's definitely more like you said. He's a Tim Thomas. He's an Anton Khudobin. He is a Grubauer. He's a guy that just can win games for you.
I see so much John Quick in Jack Campbell's game. And I
Mentorship.
mean,
Yeah.
I was a huge John Quick fan, and the Kings when they were in their cup run. And as a Leaf fan back then, you had to have a second team, right? Because the Leafs were never good enough to make the playoffs,
Now
and
you have to
so
have a bad team to cheer for. Go Seattle.
so the 1 year I was like, screw it, I'm going to take the 8 seed. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Kings as the 8 seed, and that was the year they won the Stanley Cup as the 8 seed. And I ended up loving, like I obviously knew John Quick from the World Juniors and everything. You follow him, and
Yeah.
he was an all-star. Man, when Jack Campbell does that spinning wheel save and the way he plays the puck, and I get it, he's his own guy, and he didn't just play behind Quick, but he played behind Quick for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he learned under the same goaltending coach, and I just see so much of it in him, and that's great for him. It's great for him because you always, if you're not taking and stealing a piece of what someone you're close to is doing, then you're not trying to become better, right? You
Sorry.
need to be better. So yeah, great on Jack Campbell. I guess I can't heap any more praise on him.
No.
He's done what he's needed to do to become the starter for now.
But
for the
also, as
trophy
it's
man.
always been, if he starts to falter, he'll always be that guy that's not quite elite. So we got to keep. I mean, the approach to talk about him is the same. I feel like he takes about himself. Like, sure, I'm winning games, but like I know I'm not anywhere near like as good as half the league. You know what I mean? Even you can just hear it in the way he talks. He's like, yeah, I should have had that one. I should have had that one. I mean, we've seen his growth and progression, and like you said, he battles like a guy that he's.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But he battles like a guy that clearly has taken some mentorship from Jonathan Quick. But again, just a small sample size is now 15-2-1. So you really have to be heaping as much praise as you can. I want to say Nick Foligno. We were recording and I had the mute on there, but I also got a Kristen Shilton tweet that said it looked like Nick Foligno tweaked something. There's a bit of a highlight that you see. He's in front of the Montreal Canadiens net with Jake Allen, and he comes away from that kind of limping. But I have in the notes here he's got an assist in all 4 games he's played. He's jumped right up on that first line with Matthews and Marner. Hasn't skipped a beat. So you hope it's nothing serious, especially since he's your big trade deadline acquisition and there's not a ton of games to go. Maybe you'll see some rest from him now. Or maybe he's back on the ice again. There's 5 minutes to go in the third, and we don't have the luxury of having the sound on, except for John there for a quick second. But yeah, Leafs are up 2-1 with 25 shots to 20. I wanted to say Adam Brooks is essentially good for a goal every other game, and he's clearly a better player than Engvall. You can argue if you want, but I wanted to ask you, when Hyman returns, is Adam Brooks coming out? Like, what's going on with that?
You know what? Same thing I said to you via text when you brought up that Timmy Liljegren was on the PK. You need depth in the playoffs. People are going to get hurt. It's a different game in the playoffs, and that's what Adam Brooks says. He's a depth piece. He's good right now, and I think that he's a really good fit on that line with Thornton and Spezza. He's under their learning tree, and he's become a better player because of it.
Yeah.
I think he's got the advantage to be playing in the playoffs over Alex Galchenyuk right now. Whether he has the advantage over Riley Nash or not, I don't know.
That was my next question.
Who might push him out, right?
Okay. That was actually what's up on the list next. What about Riley Nash? Yeah.
Yeah. Riley Nash, he hasn't had a chance, right, to show what he's got for the Leafs, and he has shown against the Leafs for both Boston and for Columbus what he could do against them, right? So you definitely want that kind of guy on your team. I do want to get into what has happened at the Rangers game tonight, though.
Let's talk about that and end the show, because I'm pretty sure that's all we got for the Leafs. I just want to say there's so many good depth players on this team that are performing to and or above expectations right now with Engvall coming back in the lineup for a couple of games. I thought he looked fine. If you're going to need to rely on him come a long playoff series, you're probably okay for a game or two. But Adam Brooks is a guy that I would have in ahead of him. And like you mentioned, Galchenyuk is one of those guys. Like you've got Wayne Simmons on the third line. Either one, Simmons could go down to the fourth. Simmons could come out of the lineup. You've got so much happening with depth right now, even without talking about Riley Nash. You could have a third line of Hyman, Kerfoot, Mikheyev, which would have like a fourth line of any one of like 5 or 6 guys: Spezza, Thornton, Simmons, Brooks, Engvall. Like, seriously. So there's a ton of depth on here. And again, I haven't even mentioned Riley Nash. So they have like 8 forward lines right now. It's maybe 6 forward lines. Why did I whistle there? 6 forward lines. But yeah, John, upcoming schedule: Thursday, 7 p.m. against Montreal again, and then Saturday the 8th, another Montreal game, and then to close out the season, Ottawa Wednesday the 12th, and then Friday May 14th. But we'll have shows to talk about some of the results in those games. And to close things out, let's get right into what's going on here, because you sound like you know a bit more than I do.
You want to talk about Brooks being good for a goal a game or a chance a game. Tom Wilson is good for a suspension a game. He's gone again, man. He's gone.
Okay.
He's got to. I don't know how. You said he was in the box acting all tough guy. I don't know how the ref didn't throw him out. He full on body slammed Artemi Panarin to the ice.
Wow.
Judo flip, full force. Panarin out of the game. And I don't understand how Tom Wilson doesn't get a 10-game suspension.
He's such a repeat offender. He's such a repeat offender, dude.
Vicious, Ryan. It was so actually because he went the required length of time between suspensions. He's no longer considered a repeat offender.
Oh, that's so ugly.
Yeah,
he has to be calculated. That sounds calculated.
he's
5-minute major.
The bad guy.
We both get to nominate him as a 5-minute major, guaranteed.
Yeah,
this week.
Well, I mean, he was on top of Pavel Buchnevich in the crease, and he punched Pavel Buchnevich in the back of the head, face first into the ice.
Cool.
And then a scrum started, and he got into a Panarin, and he full on body slammed Artemi Panarin down to the ice. And continued to pummel into Panarin when he was on the ice. I do not see how player safety does not suspend this guy for the rest of the regular season, and maybe even a couple games in the playoffs. It was ugly, man. It was like it's a good thing. I'm pretty sure the Rangers are cooked, right? They're not anywhere close. That's a good thing, because I don't think Panarin's going to play for the rest of the regular season, and I don't think he'd play into the playoffs if they were going to be in there.
Well, you hate to have things like this to call content, but just more content always coming out of the leagues that we cover. So I think we'll end today's show on that. I'm going to disappear and watch the last minute and a half of this Leafs game in which they lead the Habs, and my poster's falling off the wall. Huge outro for us. That is massive. That is a
Perfect.
massive. Yeah, that couldn't
he's
be
like,
better.
I do not. Tom Wilson, you're gone. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. Blame it on Dougie. Okay. So there's a poltergeist in my room I got to deal with. we're gonna watch the outro of this game. But when I get this closed up, I'm gonna watch that highlight, and I'm sure we'll talk after the show. Good chatting with you again this week, John. The internet connection wasn't our friend, but we got it done. We're out of here before 9:25. And as always, man, we'll chat next week. Thank you for being here.
Peace.
Peace. Later.